Hi, good morning. Welcome to Shift. We have a very special guest today that you saw in worship, Ann Michels. And Ann has been around Trinity for at least 10 years. I hope that you recognize her. She has been lead singer in our cantatas, and when we had George Maurer, Ann is a very close friend with him as well. And if you go to Chanhassen, like Denny Pedersen was planning to do, he had tickets for the Music Man, which is what you're supposed to be doing.
That is what I'm supposed to be doing, but like everybody else, particularly in the performing arts, everything had to stop. You know, there came a time when, because of COVID-19, you just can't ask people to be together anymore, and especially the Chanhassen is almost 600 seats, and people are eating next to one another, and so, yes, Friday the 13th, we did not have a show that night. That's what I remember, is that we were asked to stay home. And we've been there ever since, and we're just waiting to hear what happens now.
What are you doing to keep yourself as vibrant as you are?
Thank you for saying I'm vibrant.
You are.
Thank
you. Really
you.
Are.
You know, I always just go back to my roots. Family has become real important, and checking in with my mom on a regular basis, far more than I normally would. Being outside, digging around in the dirt, picking up rocks and sticks and looking at animals, and hoping that I've brought a camera that's good enough to take an adequate picture of it, because I like to share. I have some friends who are sort of homebound and can't get out, and I've had comments like, I haven't seen the moon in a very long time, or heard frogs croaking in the water. So for me, I think the biggest thing that's keeping me sane and keeping me curious is just being out in nature. It's a place where I can easily worship, you know, God's creations, and it takes me out of my own brain, because we can sit in the house and read the news, listen to the news, which I do, and when I'm out in nature, I just feel more at ease. And many, many years ago, I was watching a program on PBS about Native Americans who built birch bark canoes in the original native way, right? They didn't have all the modern glues and whatnot. And an elder was standing out in the middle of the field, and he said, out here, everything is in balance. And when I am out here, my body cannot help but be in balance with it. And that just resonated with me so strongly, and I've remembered it ever since. And so I guess that's the long answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, we are blessed to be in some springtime now, and I think that is very fortunate.
Yeah, it might have been a very different story had this happened, you know, in January.
Exactly.
But I still, you know, even then I was trying to go outside. I was trying to have a collection of clothing that made me go outside, things that would keep me warm enough. This year, for the first time, I bought a pair of hiking boots that were good enough to be in sub-zero temperatures. So I could go out and muck about in the snow and look at animals in the trees. And that's a nice thing about winter, is that all the trees are bare and the landscape is white, so you can see creatures a little bit more clearly than you can when there's a lot of camouflage.
You have been in a lot of plays, musicals, from Victor Victoria to Mary Poppins to Music Man. Fiddler on the Roof, I would...
Not yet.
Not Fiddler?
Not yet, no. Someday I'll be a Golda one day.
What inspires you?
Oh boy, a good story. I am at heart a storyteller, I think. When I was a little girl, I remember the kind of music that resonated with me the most were the story songs. And I know Kenny Rogers passed recently, but a lot of his songs were stories, like The Gambler, Coward of the County. Dolly Parton wrote a lot of story songs. And anything that had like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a lesson of some sort, and could bring you on a journey and make you feel, I was for it. And so that inspires me. And it doesn't, as far as performers are concerned, that person doesn't even need to be a brilliant singer. They can have, a strange voice like Tom Waits or Bob Dylan, and they have, not the most technically beautiful instruments, but the way that they can convey something is so beautiful. That's what inspires me as a good story.
Yeah, those stories unite us. You grew up in Faribault.
I did.
You are the pride of Faribault.
Well, there are a lot of really phenomenal people who grew up in Faribault, and people are very kind to me when I go back there, and my mom is still there. But it is a sweet little town. The Faribault Woolen Mill is there, and some of you may have a woolen mill blanket in your home, and they always spell it F-A-I-R-B-O instead of the French Faribault Woolen Mill. It's Faribault Woolen Mill. They also have the treasure caves there where a lot of the blue cheese that we have in our store is made.
I did not know that. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and there's
really
several campuses there, the School for the Blind, the School for the Deaf, Shattuck St. Mary's, a lot of these old, gorgeous, gorgeous campuses that are there that brought a lot of different people from around the world to that community.
What was your first role in the theater?
Well, depends on how far back you want to go. I remember in 6th grade, I played, I think her name was Belinda in The Frog Prince. And that was a big deal for me. But my school didn't really have theater until I was in high school. And when I was a sophomore, I was cast in the spring musical. We had an interim director that year who didn't really know anybody and just sort of looked at everybody at face value. And he was going to do a production of My Fair Lady. And as a sophomore, he cast me as Eliza Doolittle. And I was beside myself. I just went whole hog in learning it and doing the best that I could possibly do. And I knew that there were others, girls who were juniors and seniors who were probably a little perturbed at me that this sophomore girl got the role. But I was just completely enamored with theater from that point on.
How do you go about memorizing scripts?
Some people are really good at that. My husband is so annoying. He can pick up a script and memorize it so quickly. And I literally sit for hours and hours and hours and go over it and go over it. I highlight it. I make recordings of all the cue lines. So let's say you're looking at the script. I will read everybody's lines out loud around mine and leave a space for mine so that I can make a cue tape.
Right, when you're going to enter.
Right, so eventually when I get to the point where I think I know my lines, I can be doing dishes or vacuuming and working on my script. But I've never been a person who memorizes easily. But when it clicks, it clicks. There's always a time when you're like, I'm never going to learn this. Oh my gosh, I will never learn this. And then one day, there it is, and then it's in there.
So you really pound into it, and it sort of becomes a part of you.
Yes.
How are you, or aren't you, practicing now for the Music Man? Do you hope to go back?
What's really funny is every Tuesday, we have a Facebook group for the cast of The Music Man and crew. They're on it as well. And every Tuesday we have a happy hour at 5. And we always joke that, when we come back, we want to just have one performance where none of us have practiced, just to see what will happen, because it will entertain us mightily. But that likely won't happen. But we ask each other on a regular basis, who's looked at it, who's gone through it. And so far, none of us really have taken much time with it. But it's getting to the point now where it could be a tipping point of it leaving your brain, the choreography. Right. Everything is so intricate. It's like a well-oiled machine, and if one little thing goes wrong, that can throw the whole play off. So I'm to the point now where I'm about ready to pick it back up, maybe dig out that cue tape I made. It's not a tape. Nobody tapes anymore. We record
That's
it.
what I've been told. I always say tape, and Mark says record. Like he's a lot younger than me.
Yeah, right. right. Yeah, I still carry around my Walkman.
Exactly.
Right, my
We're
Walkman.
still doing stuff like that. Well, we are so happy that you're here, and you and Mark are going to do a little song for us.
We are. We're going to do What a Wonderful World.
And that it is. We hope this brings you a little cheer.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright, blessed day, the dark, sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I see babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world. And I say to myself, what a wonderful
That was just awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ann. Well, next week, we are on a whole different vein. Neil Kashkari, he's been on the Today Show, he's been on Face the Nation, but his big appearance is next week right here at Trinity. Stay tuned for that. Thanks.